Hello and welcome to Virtual Lunch, where the host this week is looking a little different. I'm Sophie Roberts and I head up the Insurer TV usually, but today I'm absolutely over the moon to be joining James and Ian on Virtual Lunch as their special guest interviewer. We get into everything on this podcast episode, from selling sweets at school to chasing billions in premium. It's one thing to build fast, but it's certainly another to build right, and this is a masterclass in both. I'm Sophie Roberts and this is Virtual Lunch. So how did the idea then materialise from it being in the pub with your mates to you and Ian sitting here having great interviews as well?
Whose fault is it that I'm here?
So virtual lunch was because I basically just sort of said, I told everyone about what we used to talk about and what I mean, just chew the fat and, you know, virtual lunch, right? And then that was how they sort of came around with the whole, you know, who could you go for lunch with, or, you know, where would you go?
To the point, who could you not go for lunch with? Who we can go for a virtual lunch with, and then you can click it.
Or who couldn't get an interview with certain people when
Sophie.
we can.
Who couldn't you get an interview with?
I mean, that brings me on. I mean, you've had some great interviews.
I was very pleased that Fish did it. That was the one I really
wanted. And Lucy
wanted.
Clark as well. These are two people that we find really difficult to get to do one-on-one interviews with us, and yet just it took one phone call, one invite.
Yes, it was quite easy, really.
The system works.
You have interviewed people who are outside of industry, and what was the thinking behind that? Why did you want to do that?
So I think we initially wanted.
We didn't want it to just be boring.
Yeah. Well, I've always said insurance is the most boring word on the planet, objectively. Like
it needs a new word. You're right.
It does need a new word. I was chatting to some work experience people a couple of weeks ago, and they're choosing. One of them's like, I'm choosing between insurance or banking or law. And I think it's always important to just address the elephant in the room quite early on, that insurance is the most boring word on the planet. But actually, Lloyd's of London and the way it's traded is actually kind of sexy, like compared to the way you sell most things.
Yeah, it
or
is.
like any other commodity or product or whatever. But no, we wanted to, the idea, I can't remember whose idea it was, or to my earlier point, whose fault it is, who I can blame for why I'm here with a microphone.
I think it's more of a case of, if I'm doing it, you're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the idea was have some top people in the industry who objectively you probably couldn't get a lunch date with, but who had interesting thought leadership. Some people internally around Rokstone to talk about literally one of the themes is around business ownership and the journey to ownership. And obviously that's our core model, where we partner with people to set up businesses in the MGA. So that's
Don't waste all this content.
Yeah, sorry. And then the last bit was interesting people from outside of industry who had stories to tell about, I suppose initially it was like business ownership. So Henry Lansbury he'd finished his football career and gone in to start a business around grass. So I mean, such a leap that, isn't it? But I suppose like most things, it morphs into Jamie McDonald is just like a super interesting person, isn't he?
Yeah.
And War Buddies, his charity, he's just set up. The reason why we didn't release it last Thursday was because he was launching Ward Buddies this weekend, just gone.
Okay, so we
had to wait. To
hopefully we'll get Ollie on here. That's part of the plan, isn't it?
Yes.
That'll boost our viewership, listenership significantly for a bit.
That'll definitely branch the audience out as well.
That'll take my anxiety levels to through the roof.
And then we need to next time we're on the chat, I'm going to make sure we get Gunter on here. Oh fuck! He'd be hilarious.
He would also be very good. He'd need to be censored. Yeah. It
would just be beep 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 beep.
It's a podcast. You can say what you want. Fuck, shit, bollocks. Say you want.
Actually, you did swear.
They said that. I asked before the first episode, can we swear?
Yeah.
And they said, no problem.
I always have to ask. Well, actually, I'm very disciplined in my own interviews, but I'm absolutely.
It's not the Insurer TV.
Swearing. It's not the Insurer TV. It's not the Insurer TV today. Which
you're not edited by Reuters today.
No, not edited by Reuters today.
So what you want. We're the ones that get sued. So.
Yeah. But I am here because. We were supposed to have a prep call yesterday, which neither of you joined.
Sorry.
There was, when I said chaos yesterday, it was chaos.
So we're really ad-libbing here.
I was busy. I was washing my hair.
But one of the things which looks splendid today, Ian. Thank you for putting the time and the effort in.
Yeah.
So this interview, just to sort of give your growing audience some context, you tried to do this 3 times. The two of you interview each other, and realised that was problematic.
The problem is I don't like him. That's the problem.
Amateurs.
We don't get on at all. And we're absolute amateurs for this, so we needed a professional to do the job.
No, you needed a slightly more experienced amateur. So cue me.
Well, thank you for agreeing to do it, Sophie.
It's my pleasure. And I must say, this is my first podcast. I will also say this is an absolutely beautiful studio. And congrats for getting it off the ground as well, because that's one thing I do know. These things are really hard to do. And,
we're
you've had great speakers so far. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Thank you for doing it. As you've rightly identified, we are amateurs. Messed this up at least 3 times. Supposed to be talking to each other, so we brought in the professionals. Thank you.
But I think one of the reasons why you wanted to do it, you wanted to like convey a bit about who you are, sort of the life, the heartbeat behind Rokstone, and what your views are on like other things. I don't want to say leadership because we've already discussed that if we say that in the first 5 minutes, then people will switch off. Don't switch off. Yeah. But I'm keen to know how you both got into the industry from the get-go. So you were talking, Ian, about how obviously the word insurance isn't an attractive, sexy term, but what drew it? What was so interesting about it that drew you in?
The pension. I wanted to go into sports agency, which actually is quite sexy, right? That's like the dream. I was into sports when I was a kid. I went to do a golf scholarship in America, so I thought, right, not good enough at golf to make a career out of it. What's the next thing I can do? I know, sports agency, because I've met loads of people that are better than me at golf and might make some money.
Although he is a scratch golfer, to be fair.
Yeah, so I thought I could maybe use my contacts to hang on the back of the coattails of some more talented people. So I had an option to go. I did this like negotiation day at Wasserman Media Group, who were one of the big sports agencies. They brokered the first Sky TV, Premier League TV rights deals, I believe. Anyway, when I did this negotiation, it kind of is interesting. I went and did this negotiation day with them, which was for an internship place, and it was really fun. It was a scenario where you were representing a footballer or a club or another club trying to buy the footballer, and you had a real football agent in each group. And it was that moment when I realised that all that time spent playing Football Manager when I was a kid had finally paid off, and my knowledge of second division football. Yeah, this was for me. So I actually got one of these places, and the irony of the situation is I was just finishing university. I had no money, and having won a place on the negotiation day, I tried to negotiate an expense package to get the train because I had no money, and it's quite expensive to get the train to London for like 3 months and work without
increasingly
pay.
So.
Yeah, they said no, and but at the same time, I had applied for the graduate scheme at Gallagher, and as I was learning more about the insurance industry, I had that option, which was for a real job that paid real money and everything like that. And I had this realization that's like, I want to do this where I buy and sell football players, and then insurance sounds quite dull. The more you learned about it, Lloyd's of London, the way the market's traded, it was like, well, that's a far more interesting way to trade anything than like driving up and down the M6 to meet people's parents and try and get them to sign, try and get their snotty 16-year-old to sign with your agency. Yeah. So I think insurance is traded in still a really, really cool way. And that's what drew me into it, really. But obviously, it also has got, unlike sports, that's the thing, sports agency sounds so sexy, so you can basically abuse all the people because they're so competitive to get into it. Yeah. Whereas insurance, like, they treat people well, right? When you start an industry,
they're a generous
they
bunch.
Treat people well. It's traded in a really fun way. So that's
Here's more money than you would have ever thought you were going to earn at this age.
Yeah.
And a pension.
It wasn't that much at the start, but yeah, that's how I got drawn in, really. I just recognised that it's how things are done, it's how things are traded, it's not really what you're buying and selling. And then you actually learn that insurance is objectively interesting because everything in the world, the whole capitalist system, relies on insurance. So if you're interested in apples, for whatever reason why you would be, but you can go into cargo and do like soft commodities. If you're interested in oil and gas or energy, you can do that. If you're interested in sports, you can go and do contingencies. There's everything, right? So yeah, that's
the whole world moves around.
It doesn't move. Yeah. James, how about you?
Mine was a little less. I wasn't a graduate. I left school. Kind of fell out of school, really.
Fell out of school, fell into insurance.
Yeah, it was an interesting one, actually. Given our connections to motorsport and what have you, I'm actually the petrol head within the Aventum or Rokstone side, and I love cars, always have done. You know, I'm a child when it comes to, you know, supercars and what have you. And when the likes of Rolls-Royce, Ferrari and what have you didn't accept my application to become their new CEO, which I was quite shocked about, there was a guy that used to look after my parents' mortgage, investments and endowments and all that sort of stuff. He used to come around the house and chat to them about everything and what have you. And I said to my mum and dad, I said, what does Richard do? You know, I mean, he always looks nice. He wears a nice pinstripe suit, drives a BMW. I was like, that doesn't seem too bad.
That looks nice.
And they said he works in insurance. I was like, okay, fine. So I wrote 10 letters to insurance companies, and thankfully, and still very grateful, Royal Insurance came back to me and said, we'd like to give you a shot as an underwriter.
Yeah.
I just remember my first day actually, when literally I started. I was given these two late 50s, early 60-year-old underwriters, and they sat me down and said, right, you're an underwriter now. I was like, excuse me?
What was that?
A genuine...
Under what?
Yes, I genuinely didn't
we have
really
a
know.
much more thorough selection process for underwriters at Rokstone now.
But yeah,
it's a side note. Significant envy.
So yeah, it was interesting to sort of get in, but that's how I fell in, and never kind of looked back really.
Yeah. So
30 years later.
30 years. Well, I was about to say, so fast forward from then, but rewind from now. Rokstone, tell me about how did it begin? What made you want to take the leap?
I guess it was probably frustration. I remember sort of 2014, 15, and it was starting to become sort of challenging. The market was tightening up. We were just starting to get into that decile 10 era, and everyone was sort of going really, really long on. I was a property guy really, but I turned my hand at most things as a broker, and I think I'll come back to it. Yeah, probably frustration, because I'm sort of seeing. I always had a lot of international business as well as US, but whenever you sat down with an underwriter, you sort of, try and broker a piece of international business, and no one was really interested, or very few, because everyone was like, it's not American, it's not FTSE, Fortune 500, yada, yada, yada. And so I started to see a little bit of a gap in the market, as it were, to sort of do something a little bit different. And I think, again, it was when modelling was really starting to sort of come in, and there was even back then there were very few markets that could quote without modelling and what have you. You had like the legends such as Simon King and people like that would still model after rather than before. So we still had authority to quote, which still fascinated me. Whereas still a lot of people were relying on what their modelled output was before they'd quote and what have you. So I think saw an option to do something different, and then as kind of 15, 16, 17 I suppose started to sort of pass, the delta was becoming even bigger. So creating something that would allow us to fill a void, a need, and I suppose an underlying want as well to do something different, provide I wanted to go back to underwriting as well, is where I started.
Yeah.
So, it was a way for me to get into the underwriting world, do something different and provide a solution. So kind of Rokstone was born. The original, it was 2017, the original sort of MGA startup first was, iSure and iFarm, our commercial combined aspects, and then quickly we set up Aura, which is our Caribbean cat, and then Novus, and then kind of Rokstone proper, and then obviously 2021 we brought them all under one roof.
One of the things about this industry, which is what is so energizing about it. It's like it's a great place if you're an entrepreneur, if you're someone who wants to launch their own business and things like that.
Yeah.
But obviously the double-edged sword of being an entrepreneur is that it comes with so much risk, whether or not it be personal, professional, financial. How do you weigh up, wanting to be an entrepreneur and launch a business, against that kind of risk backdrop?
The thing is, I think it's interesting. You kind of list all those things, and it's all of that, right? Because there's the risk element. What if it doesn't work? You can always counter that with what if it does work? The financial element to it is obviously when I first joined up with David, it was a little bit of a case of, I didn't know how I was going to pay my mortgage and what have you, and now we've built something pretty special. So I've never really, risk doesn't scare me, and I think I've always been an entrepreneur, if you want to call it that.
I'm going to call it that.
Since I was about 13, when I was selling sweets in the playground and servicing people's bikes at school and things like that. I've always had a flair for sales, I suppose.
One of the things I've actually always noticed when I speak to people who I believe to be entrepreneurial people is that they always have a story like that. They were hustling like in the playground at 11, or they were putting notes through letterboxes on the paper round to see if they could do car clean their clients' cars and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean,
I got complaints against the Fairy Liquid, actually.
It's not the right thing to use.
No, I know, it's really bad for cars, but I didn't know that when I was 14.
Yeah. Was there a moment that you sort of ever doubted yourself kind of in that early time of setting up?
I mean, never, doubted is a different word, but I think sometimes you kind of need to think about it like jumping off a cliff and knitting the parachute on the way down. I use
anxiety's rippling through me.
Yeah, I mean, we use the phrase quite a lot in our business because we do run fast all the time, and we use the phrase of painting the bottom of the boat at sea. Because we're always evolving, and always trying to sort of be the best version, I suppose, and not settling for being second place. And I think the biggest thing that we've tried to keep all the way through from the get-go to where we are now is kind of not losing that underdog feeling. It's not bad being an underdog because it sort of really, really keeps you reared up and never being complacent.
Yeah.
And I think that's the bit where people go wrong. If you think you've made it, you generally haven't. So I think realizing that
this is why when we talked for a very brief time about when we were moving office about potentially, I think it was looked at the the top floor in 22 Bishopsgate.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I was like, it doesn't fit the brand of underdog.
Yeah.
I know it's a weird thing, but it's from there you can really only go down. And
I will say the estate agent or lettings agent or whatever it was who was doing it did a brilliant job though of just, this is true story, very, very funny. So literally we're walking around the top floor, which I think is the highest office in Western Europe, right? So what an accolade, right? Really, really cool. We'd looked at some lower levels as well, but the estate agent sort of said to us, you guys won't be able to afford this type thing. This is going to be a hedge fund or a private equity fund or whatever it is.
Watch me.
And literally, I just remember turning around to the guy and saying, "We'll take it." And it was a little bit like that. But then I think gradually, that
would have been a strategy, I'm sure.
Honestly, it was so clever.
No hedge funds moving in there.
He saw you coming a mile off, didn't he?
Oh, totally. I mean, it was brilliant. And then essentially, I think by the time we got back to the ground floor, we'd sort of backed our way out of it because it was we realised how expensive it was. Yeah. So and then we found something that was more befitting for
coming down from the heady heights of the
I mean, it was fabulous.
Yeah.
James is
maybe in the next office move, right?
James's superpower though is his positivity.
Yeah.
So when you were asking,
that's a lovely thing to say about somebody.
But when you were asking about the risk and you could think about could it go wrong? I can't imagine him ever thinking this won't work. Which is such a powerful mindset.
Yeah.
Before I met him or before I started working with him, earlier on, as with all people, there are people who, there are people who are really big sports and there are people who are not sure, whatever. And
Yeah,
there was probably more doubters back then before Rokstone became what it was. But I remember someone suggesting to me that James was like a bit of a fantasist, actually, in terms of like, but what I realise now is like the people, like when you have like really big goals, like he sets really big goals and he talks about this with people inside Rokstone, set massive goals.
BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goals.
Comes to work every day believing, like literally manifesting things, spreading positivity around, and it's incredible how powerful that mentality is.
Yeah.
Like if you'd said to people when Rokstone started, it would be what it is now, most people in the market would have, no way, MGA was a totally different thing.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get into that a little bit, but I mean, so having founded in 2017, 18.
Yeah, that was when it really started.
And then so less than 10.
Shape.
Less than 10 years, you've now broken the 1 billion GWP, and I mean that's no small feat. That's really, really impressive. So, what were those big, hairy, audacious goals?
BHAG.
Yeah. The BHAG has been realised. But Ian, let's talk about how you came into the Rokstone family. When did you first meet James, and what drew you in?
I met James when I was a broker working at Gallagher. So I'd only had one role in insurance, or one job, a few different roles in that company. When they set up Rokstone, I was trading with them, so I'd got to know him a little bit through broking to Rokstone and the underwriting team that they had. And there was something very, very different immediately that I noticed about
the
James.
Energy.
It was. I mean, the office was terrible that they had back then.
Well, at least the chairs matched.
Yeah, but I remember
one of the things I love about these sort of businesses, though, is that isn't it the best thing to be in like the feral startup stage?
Yeah,
it's just
it is.
Well, the office is terrible. I mean, you had matching chairs. I mean, okay, fair play.
I mean, they weren't that bad.
I just there's something that certain people thrive in that.
Yeah, and I'm definitely that. So, when I started at Alesco in Gallagher, when it was before Gallagher bought, I think they were always a minority investor, or maybe a majority from the start, but it was an independent at that time. It was just in energy, and I think when I joined, there was like 31 or 32 people there.
Feral.
But it was like Simon Matson was running it back there. Well, he's obviously gone straight through Gallagher, but it was like post startup when I joined still.
Really exciting.
But like the cultural elements, which you can't even get away with now. I remember things like Trigger Awards. When people did something stupid, there was like a picture of Trigger went in your desk and all that kind of stuff. But it was very much like an underdog mentality. Like they fought for every pound of brokerage. They looked after clients, in a way that meant like every client was the most important one. And I loved that like post startup mentality. And what I suppose the thing that really I started fighting Rockstone's corner sort of before I joined, when I was placing lines in there, and you take a slip into Lloyd's with an MGA line on it from Rokstone, and kind of like quote unquote sort of snooty underwriters, not necessarily like older ones, but also some younger ones who just kind of mirroring the kind of behaviours of their superiors or whatever, would make like derogatory comments about MGAs. They won't be there in a couple of years, all that kind of stuff. And I just used to think but I just used to think like it's so easy to just.
Don't a lot of those work in MGAs now?
Probably. Well, yeah, but it's so easy to criticise. It's so easy to criticise. It's so hard to start. And I always knew that the hardest thing to do is to start something.
Yeah.
So I respected what they were doing. I just enjoyed the energy of it. And when I met with James and David, James's business partner, I just thought these guys are very different to the other people that I've met in insurance. And people, I went around the market when they tried to recruit me. I went around the market and spoke to a lot of underwriters. And the feeling was kind of like, it could be good. It could also be like a massive risk or whatever. In hindsight, it was not a huge risk in reality, but it was definitely perceived as a risk in that way. But it was
definitely said, I think at the end of the chat, it'll be the best decision you make.
Yeah, and it was. I'll have to say, obviously, other than marrying my wife.
That's second, right?
That's second, yeah.
And the birth of your child.
Yes, of course, yeah.
So you're slipping down the ranks there.
I know. He's got 2 kids now.
Yeah.
Child,
yeah.
Okay, you're solid 4.
I'm top 5.
You're getting me in trouble. It's all right. Hopefully, I should have switched off by now. No, that was what I was saying. That was
we
the best one.
We need to timestamp this exact point in this conversation.
No, Marilotti was the best one. Johnny Rokstone second one, just for the record.
And the kids.
Yeah, that wasn't a risk. That just happens, doesn't it?
Fair enough.
So what drew you to Ian? What was the appeal?
Cheap.
No, I think
Ian, to add a layer of
Ian had Ian had an energy, an aura about him that, he wanted to find solutions, which is, I wanted to provide solutions. He wanted to come up with ways of doing things differently. And I think the two things kind of collided brilliantly. And we just sort of discussed at the time, internally, that we wanted someone that was a solution. And look, we originally hired Ian as a power underwriter because, that was his background within Alesco and Gallagher. So, having someone with some more knowledge than we did was always better. So I think that was the original conception. But then, quickly we realised that he was a lot more than he had a lot more to offer than just underwriting.
I would say that bad at underwriting that they took me out of it after 8 months.
Well, in all fairness, Ian, I still will never forget the words that came out of our, and I'm going to call him a professional power underwriter, Ian Green. He referred to the book that Ian wrote.
As opposed to the unprofessional.
Yeah.
Ian Anson.
Yes. Well, no, he referred to the book that Ian had, and I'll call it curated.
Yeah.
Was full of cream puff business, was his words, quote unquote.
Honestly, timing's everything, isn't it? My underwriting career in power, you could not have timed it for a better point in the market cycle. And the best way to address a hard market in hindsight is I didn't even realise at the time what I was doing.
Right, everything.
Well, I had just come from broking power.
So I wanted to ask actually, what's the so you came with that kind of more in-depth knowledge and insight, I guess, which I suppose you're then giving underwriters. But what was that transition like between going from a broker to an underwriter?
Yeah, so it was interesting. I started. The power business was written in the property team at Rokstone, like it is in a lot of syndicates. It was back then. So I joined Rokstone in February 2020. I was learning the sort of foundations of underwriting. I knew a little bit because I'd taken an interest in broking over the years, and we'd broked a lot of difficult risk. So
he was the best note taker in the company.
Terrible. Yeah. Anyway, so I knew a bit. I was learning the sort of foundations.
Yeah,
so I didn't have it back then. I was learning the foundations of underwriting, the principles of property underwriting, really. And I was in the office for a month with a really experienced property underwriting team. And then COVID happens and everyone goes home after about a month or something like that. And that I often sometimes think about this actually, that I actually think that it's kind of a sink or swim moment, I suppose, and it can go one or two ways depending on what you're like and what your kind of learning style's like maybe. But I think for me, going home and being by myself was actually an amazing bit of fortune at that moment, because I wasn't all of a sudden I wasn't polluted by the way that people were doing things or thinking about things. You're just forced to be very independent to a degree. So it enabled me to look at things from like 30,000 feet and start thinking like about ways we could improve the business.
Yeah.
Like without feeling like, probably if I was in the office, I'd have felt like, I can't really say that because like there's all these guys who've been here a long time, or they're much more experienced, have been underwriting 25 years. Maybe I shouldn't say like, why are we doing it like that? Maybe we should do it like that. But it was really, really great to have the space to just like look at stuff and phone up James and say like, do you know we do things like this? Like, why don't we do it like this? And that I think was probably how maybe they started thinking I could do other things other than underwriting. But that at that moment in the cycle, underwriting power was amazing because I just broke it all. I was doing a lot of FAC and wholesale. I knew exactly where the market was, and I think that if you're broking it, you're slightly more attuned to where the market truly is than what the underwriters are. I knew that the last 20% of placements for most risk at that time was becoming really difficult. So, and again, fortunate because had I been at AIG as a first year underwriter, I would have had a lane about this wide.
Yeah.
And if I joined Rokstone now, I'd have a lane about this wide.
Yeah.
Joining Rokstone then as like the preeminent power specialist, if you like, in the team, I just created a brand with the key power brokers I obviously all knew, who knew that if they wanted a 20% line on a risk, all they had to do was phone me up on the day before it bound and offered me twice the quota share price for a primary 20. And I'd give them a 20% line.
And we come back to the cream puff.
Yeah. So it was very good, but it was quite short-sighted in a way, because I don't know, Ian,
you were the first off a risk.
Yeah. So I then recruited Ian Green, because I also knew that I knew that there was people better out there than me to manage a power book through the cycle. So I made myself redundant by recruiting Ian Green. And he did make a joke for a while, saying, in about 18 months later, he was like, fuck's sake, I'm first off every risk. Everything you wrote, they're trying to kick me off now. So he had to underwrite the book.
Thanks for the foundation.
Yeah. But, my numbers look amazing for that 1 year, so that's good.
I think, slight segue, but I mean, what you were saying just about, like timing is everything. Timing is so important. Of course, like, the growth of, when we think about the growth of Rokstone, time of it rapid, what are some of the sort of, I don't know, unintended consequences that have happened from rapid growth, and what do people get wrong?
I think obviously at the beginning it was kind of just get it done, and get going and what have you, and then as the business has sort of, dare I say, grown up, we've earned the stripes. I think we're still very much that solution orientated company. Just we can back it up with data. We can back it up with credible actuarial results now and what have you. So we've gone from kind of, dare I say, I think you've used the word earlier on, sort of slightly scrappy.
Actually, I said feral.
Yeah, feral. Yeah, fine. Sort of, scrappy feral. To kind of, I think we've earned the right to professional now. We've got everyone we need. Our bench strength is really, really good. So we've sort of gone from that just surviving to being, dare I say, a professional company, which we're hugely proud of.
And as I understand it, recruiting as well into this professional company is a humongous opportunity for you as well, and something you don't struggle with.
I mean, we love it. I mean, the thing is, it's you come back to what Ian said earlier. The energy in our business is fantastic. I remember we hired someone once, actually, when we was this is in the old building. Someone actually got out the lift once in our old building. And he used to go to other floors to see different underwriters and what have you. This was when we were in 34 Lime Street. And this guy actually got out the lift and he said, it was almost like, I don't know what you do, but whatever it is, I need to join. Because there was so much hustle and bustle in our reception. And, because it was always busy and what have you. We had our sort of underwriting floor and, this is before we had the Lloyd's boxes and what have you. And it was exciting, I mean, it still is, I still say there isn't a company in the world like our business. We're fiercely independent, obviously, we don't settle for anything except, excellent. We don't get it right all the time, obviously, but I think we've sort of learnt to fail faster.
That was the best thing about the best thing about the culture in the early days when I joined is it was very clear. David and James, and David, I think, lives his life like this, especially, is the goal was just to be better, be better every day, be the best business we can be, keep improving. That's come through. You see it obviously in Ollie's career. That I imagine there's been a big influence. And for James, I remember I used to love the quote. James's whole thing was I want to create a fantasy football team. And he talks about legacy. I want people to talk about Rokstone and say those guys did it right. And he was thinking about putting the players on the pitch underwriting wise. He's trying to build a fantasy football team.
By the way, I hate football, just for the record. But
fantasy hockey team.
Fantasy ice hockey team doesn't sound as good as fantasy football, does it?
But it's super powerful when you have a private business and you've got founder led, and the the behavior is set that's just as simple as, let's try and create the best business we can within this vision, and let's try and get better every day.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful.
Yeah.
And people, as people join and people get embedded into the culture, the energy just grows and grows and grows. And it's been quite an interesting thing for me to just observe and be a part of. But it's actually everything you hear about, especially growing up in sport, around sports psychology and the power of positivity and mindset and all that kind of stuff, which you try to instill in your life. The Rokstone story for me has actually been an incredible example of the power of that commitment, focus, positivity, present-mindedness, focus on delivering in the moment, get better each day, turn up to work, do it again, do the right things again, keep doing the right things, stay focused on the goal, do the right things, be positive. All that stuff. That creates incredible momentum. And so when you said, what do people get wrong when growing quickly and things like that, I don't know what people get wrong, because
you've only seen it.
Yeah, and
go the right way.
Also, there's many different ways to skin a cat, aren't there? And I'm not clever enough to tell people how they should do it, but what I can say is the things we've got right is a commitment to getting better all the time. Yeah. And we've stayed focused on that, and it's really, really straightforward.
I think if I had to change anything again, I would hire more senior. I don't like using the term mid-back office, but I don't actually have another way to describe it. But the support functions, I suppose, I would have hired bigger names quicker. I think this is where Ian has done a great job of building the team around him. The likes of Martin Thomas, Nadine, you've put the infrastructure in place to really, we are now ready for the next billion, 2 billion, 3 billion, 5 billion. We've been doing a lot of foundation building, which has been, it's been quite cathartic, really, isn't it? To sort of take stock for a second, without upsetting the pipeline, because the pipeline's still there, still very strong, but sort of just to take a beat and kind of rebuild another layer of foundations so we're ready for the next real big push.
So you talked a lot of, you're talking about that scale, and that scale is really both ambitious and, really, really impressive. But I mean, what's the hardest thing you think you've got to do to sort of, preserve when you look at sort of scaling at that pace, particularly from a cultural perspective?
Yeah, I mean, culture's the thing that I do bang on about culture a lot. And, I think we were quite lucky, actually. We had our chat the other week, actually.
We did.
Culture really is a thing, and I know I said that before, but it's a living, breathing thing in our business, and I suppose going back to my earlier comment, having that sort of underdog, scrappy do, I still like Scooby-Doo, it's a great cartoon, but having that sort of winning attitude all the time, I think is the difficult thing. And I think, if you come back to the ownership aspect of our business, we try and sort of stay, and look, we don't get it all the time, but we try and stay away from, that's not my idea, so I won't do it, or, that's not my part of the business, so I'm not getting involved in it. Look, you're an owner, you are literally, you run the kitchen, you run the lounge, you run your bedroom, you run everything, right? You're an owner. So if the roof is leaking, you got to fix it. Yes, we can get someone in to fix it eventually, but
it's your roof.
But it's your roof. You need to fix it, and it needs doing now, or a patch job needs doing now until we can get a professional in to repair it. But we can't let water come through the roof. So I think, having that ownership element to our business changes people's mindsets. People work a bit longer to finish it. It's not, I'll leave it, I'll do it on Monday.
Yeah.
They'll stay late on a Friday to finish it. So I think that is something that we've been, certainly, I work hard on to sort of keep the culture up, the positivity up, and that, you know, we are going to win everything we go for. I'm not very good at not winning. So it's not in my DNA.
It's not in your wheelhouse.
No.
Well, I mean, that's not
I'm a
not
bad loser.
Yeah. Well, you know,
I'm teaching my children actually to lose at the moment in the game of life and various other games.
Yeah.
So they lose a lot, unfortunately.
Oh, bless them. But I mean, on the sort of point of ownership, though, you know, have you hired people that, you know, you thought were going to be aligned with that sort of mentality that it hasn't quite worked out? You know, how do you sort of manage those scenarios where somebody like joins and it turns out they're not quite as aligned as, you know, you thought they were, and
just like it naturally happens over time.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I think that. I think we have a really, really good track record of hiring people. The fail rate, I think, is completely acceptable. But I think we've learned to fail fast more quickly now.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we have like I genuinely believe that the people who are making most of the decisions in Rokstone are good people, like good humans. And so that part of, you know, failing quickly and, you know, exiting things that aren't working is difficult, but you have a responsibility to everyone in the business who relies on it to make those decisions. But it gives me great comfort that I also believe that, like, we don't have a selfish group of people. Like, genuinely, there is a strong moral grounding. There is great pleasure felt by, I know, by James, particularly on like bonus day. He likes giving bonuses out. There was a you know, the David and James, when they took the decision to take 10% off the cap table to create a vehicle for everyone on Rokstone staff to have ownership in the group. You know, the moral grounding is quite strong, which is kind of important to me, but I think also it's quite powerful because people see that. I think people recognise that it's full of good people. So yeah, those decisions are obviously difficult, but they're essential to look after the wider community. Do you know what though? One of the things about that is like when I first joined, or in like small companies, or I saw this probably in the old company I worked in as well, and especially true in small companies. So when Rokstone was small, I think it's natural that you get a lot of people that are like this similar, think the same way, and so we've got like a really, really diverse group of skill sets now who contribute. So I don't think it's hard to fit into Rokstone. Like, you don't have to be a certain way to fit in here. Like, I actually actively want people to come in who have got different experience, different viewpoints to a degree. You know, so we can have like a really, really holistic set of information whenever we're making decisions.
Well, you learn more from people that challenge you rather than people that say yes. Right?
Yeah.
I think the non-negotiables, so the people that don't fit in well, we don't do that well with like big desk managers, I think is the phrase that some people call it internally. You know, people do well in Rokstone who get their hands dirty. We want people who lead by example to a degree, contribute. I don't like the idea.
No job too small, no job,
Kind of, like, there's obviously a point where, you know, you have to think about where certain people are putting their time, but I don't like the idea that you wouldn't do something that you're asking someone else to do. And I think that's just a good way to be in life, albeit there's obviously a line where, like, you don't want to spend the most expensive person in the company's time doing something, right? But as a principle, and I think can-do people. So you talked about what is critical to preserve is, like, there is a massive, I think it's so easy as you grow and you build in more governance, which is essential, which we've done. But I think that if I look at some other, you know, much larger, like, listed companies, it's very easy to create a no culture because there are so many people incentivized or included in a decision from a checks and balance perspective, where it's like you're almost like getting a medal for saying no or finding a reason not to do something. Like, we definitely want to be positively minded at the outset, solution providers. Like, let's try and say yes to things. Like, I'm not talking about individual risk submissions or whatever, but like we're trying to move forward rather than find reasons why we shouldn't do something.
And I think that's the difference, right, between somebody who wants to work for a big corporate and who wants to work for, you know, that startup.
I can probably sum it in 2 words: no passengers.
No passengers. Yeah. I like that.
They have to contribute.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, it's so nice being sitting around you. You know, you're clearly friends. You're clearly, very strong work colleagues.
Not questionable. When I say to him, I say, "All right, mate." He goes, "You're not my mate."
You're not my mate.
Yeah, and like the first few times I believed it, I was like, "Oh, a bit rude."
But
and he started putting Pip on my desk when I'm late for work because I've taken my son to nursery.
This is so much fun.
He puts Pip performance improvement plan on my desk, and he's did it to Sam as well, our EA. So I think her one of her children or partner's child has got is quite unwell, maybe going to hospital, and so she's maybe late for work, and he's going, Pip. Yeah, I know.
I mean, also you've got it. You know that your EA is the most important person.
Oh yeah,
at the company, right?
She does. So, she does get a lot of laughing emojis immediately after. So yeah.
Okay, well maybe you guys aren't that very good friends, but anyway, but you both have very strong views, and I'm quite keen to know how, when you're working together, is there anything that you haven't been on the same page about, and if that is the case, whether or not it's actually something with each other or it's someone else in the company, how do you manage that conflict in such a high powered
I don't think we don't really have conflict per se, I think, and probably the only way I can describe,
bearing in mind you're not a good loser.
No, but I think I
can think of a couple of times that conflict.
No, but I move fast all of the time. I'm not. I just can't go slow. It just doesn't work. Whereas Ian still moves fast, but he's perhaps more measured in his approach. So I think how I'd probably finish this, just to answer from my side, is we always end up in the same direction, but we may go different routes, if that's a fair analogy.
Yeah.
So we always end up at the finish line together.
Yeah.
But I'll go direct, and he might go via an A road.
It's a good soundbite.
Just to check it out first.
Yeah. I think, like I said before, James's superpower is his positivity. So he always has a strong he is a strong drive to create an outcome.
Yeah.
So it might be a team product doing that. And I think when I first joined Rokstone, I was just like, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. And it was I think what I quickly realized is my job became work out how we do this, and over time it's not. So I always try and support the ideas when they're his, and he has one of the most underrated things about him is he has a very, very broad knowledge of the insurance market.
Yeah.
I was shocked actually by this when I started working with him. So he's incredibly good at what he spends most of his time doing, which is trying to build product lines within Rokstone. Incredibly good at it. Mm-hmm. And so running the business day to day is effectively what I spend a lot of my time doing, but also working out, building the team and building the infrastructure to work out how we execute those things in a scalable, sustainable way. And there is so much complexity in the market. There is so much complexity in the operating model of an MJ the size of ours, which is not part of Lloyd's. It doesn't have a managing agency looking after us, not part of the bureau and things like that. There's so much complexity, and I'm not an expert in that either. But I am more exposed to that world, so I know I have these angels and demons in my ear all the time going. That I know that when I take this business plan, they're going to go, well, what about that? Have you thought about that? And James's strength is he'll just see the end goal.
Yeah.
And but now we have built an incredibly strong team that can build and operationalize the platform to make sure that it's scalable and efficient.
Yeah.
Make more money out of it. We can look after the bottom line really well, so that James can do what he's great at.
Yeah.
More consistently with more focus, because so I wouldn't say we conflict on that.
I do like the debates, but equally they do say iron sharpens iron, right? So
yeah, I was trying to think. There was also we've had a couple of disagreements about things, but they're always very amicable.
Yeah.
There was one recently where I said to you,
"This could be awkward."
You're wrong. Yeah, no, I can't even say what it is right now. But we had a really friendly debate about it, and it works.
Was I wrong?
You were
partially incorrect.
You were wrong. You were wrong about the reason I decided to do something, but the outcome was what you said it would be. So you were actually right. Yeah. You were right, but you were wrong. I would do the same thing again. Fair. But it came back.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think I also think it's really important as well that. But when you have like when
you get the idea of it, right?
I do. Yeah. It's good.
When you have founders though, founder-owned businesses who own powerful. They become powerful forces of personality, especially in our business, because actually, like, the personality is a big part of the culture. I think it's really important that someone like me in my role is comfortable to stand up and say, slow down, or no, or yeah. It's important that there are people around, like, close to the founders who can challenge and, have a strong perspective.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
I am a little conscious of time.
Are they telling us to slow down or hurry up, rather?
No, we've been speaking for a long time now.
It's gone so fast.
But there's a couple of questions that I definitely want us to try and cover before time is up, as they say. Obviously, as the companies become more professional, you both sit in leadership roles. I'm keen to know, what is the sort of one lesson that's been really important to you, as you've become more established in those roles? And that's obviously, how people look up to you within the company. James.
Mine is very, very simple. I'm the one that holds on to senior hires too long, thinking that everything will be okay. And I think that's probably where my superpower is not good, because I'm very much, life will sort itself out. But yeah, I think once you realise there's an issue, whether it's one day or 1 year, that issue's never going to change. I like to. I always see the good in people where I can. But yeah, holding on to people longer than we should do. But I think that just comes from the heart rather than from a P&L.
Yeah.
That's probably my biggest issue of leadership.
Did you say the things I've learned?
Learned, yeah.
I think one thing that
But it's fine. We covered an issue.
Yeah. I was
keeping them up at night.
Yeah, didn't think they were. For me, one of the major things that I've learned more from like others that I saw was a massive red flag for me is when people don't surround themselves with people that are good enough to challenge them.
Yes.
So for me,
get out of the echo chamber.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in the industry that I think.
Is that right? Yeah, I don't even know, but I saw it happen, kind of happen once, and I really, really, I don't feel insecure about the people around me because they make you better.
Yeah.
And you learn from it, but I try to build people around me who are better than me in different ways, and I think that's massively. It makes us all better. The other thing is, I think that I did learn. I didn't learn this the hard way, but I learned it because something could have happened which didn't happen. But I learned that if you can't control a lot of things, but if you treat people really well and you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, we acted in the right way, then you have to be able to come back to that place, because things could get tough. Things happen in the market.
Yep.
People can go rogue. Things can happen, whatever, you work for the insurance press, things can go out in the press, which might not even be true or whatever like that. You have to be able to look at yourself and say, we acted in the right way. I would do it again. And if you can get yourself into that place, I think people will respect you and it comes back around.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to be aware of. I mean, things can spiral very quickly, and, it's good to have the right people with you. What's the one thing the industry needs to let go of, and the one thing it needs to continue to build on?
Inertia. I think, process for process sake. I think just because you did it like this 30 years ago doesn't mean it's for the future. So I think, what we're building with technology, I think is going to be a big game changer in our market.
Atomics.
Yeah.
I think that got a name check in our interview. I think maybe 10 times in the end.
Oh, good. We hit the brief.
No, but I think, we are building something truly inspirational, game changing. I mean, it really it will enable us, and also it will be a differentiator.
Yeah.
So I think we're not trying to do the status quo, which I think again holds us in good stead for the future, and will allow us to scale how we want to scale as well. Because we've said this from the start. Ever since we started Rokstone, I think what we did well was, even when we weren't probably really ready for it, the breadth of our lines of business, we went wide early, which has really stood us in great stead for like the now. We've probably got 35 lines of business or something now. So we've got great breadth. It wasn't through luck. Some of it was.
Yeah.
But we went out, and as I say, we probably weren't ready for some of it. But being in the position we are now, with such diversity in there, or diversification, shall I say, in the portfolio, as put us ready for the market we are in now.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Ian?
It's hard to know what the industry should let go of, but I do think that
I did like inertia. That's a good one, I think. Yeah.
I feel like, just in general, obviously the parametric space is kind of one of the great selling point is around like absolute clarity on trigger and wording and all the rest of it. I do think that there just must be a better way to structure wordings in insurance. I think that there is just so much room for efficiency and like on all parts. The lawyers always win, don't they? But I think that if you ask people genuinely, if you ask brokers walking around the market and a lot of underwriters, if you could read a slip and tell me exactly what's covered and what's not covered, I think you'd get different views from everyone who read the slip.
So I have a theory, though, that the terms are made overly complicated or nuanced on purpose, sort of to create like a kind of automatic grey area or grey field around something. I'm sure.
I suppose it's the tension of brokers are trying to slip stuff back in, and so they're trying to write.
And you're doing it through the terminology.
You're writing it back in. Yeah.
No wonder everyone's on their T's and C's at the moment.
Yeah. There just must be a better way, though.
Is this not? Yes. Yeah. Yes. No. Yeah. No. Not covered.
Is that a double negative? Nope.
Yeah. And then what was the other thing? Things that we should build on.
Yes, the industry. Yeah.
I think, given where like the whole world is going, I think competing more for top level data scientists.
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously, there's so much money being spent by tech companies at the moment, but I do have this feeling, I think we mentioned it when Fish was there, I do have this feeling that one day the industry could just be so quickly outcompeted by one of the big tech firms who has all the data and huge balance sheets and all the rest of it. And I do feel like we should be probably competing for like the best grads coming out of like the best technology schools.
Because how long do you think the industry can really hold on to that the human element argument?
I hope for as long as possible, because it's one thing I still love, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to be in Lloyd's. Having that face-to-face negotiating element to it, and I still think specialty requires that. But AI bots and all this sort of stuff is learning fast, right? I mean, there's cars that drive without humans now, right?
Yeah.
Deliveries happen without people walking or in a parcel van. All this stuff is happening at a very, very fast pace. So who can predict the future? But
I think it'll be driven by the clients.
Depends on the class.
Basically, I think that all the while that there's a human making a decision on where they're going to go to buy their insurance or get their risk management advice, there'll be a human on the other end of it.
Yeah.
If clients get access to an automated risk management suite, which makes their decision for them based on what's most capital efficient for their balance sheet, if they get in the place where they think, I don't need a risk manager anymore because I've got this bit of software which will do it for me, then they won't want to converse with a person on the back end. So I think it will be driven by the client base. But in specialty, it's kind of complicated, isn't it? And I came out of the energy world. You're dealing with a lot of state oil company. There's a lot of bureaucracy, totally different environment. So quite a long way off, I think, like completely removing it.
Yeah.
But I suppose that's the direction in travel, isn't it, over time?
Watch this space.
Yeah, watch this space, although that's definitely not where we're going to finish this. Maintain relevance. But if you both were to start your careers again, what would you tell your younger self the day before?
From my perspective, I think it's a case of, I think a lot of people, I'd have backed myself earlier, although I was still quite young when I did that, but I think never wait for everything to be perfect, because, spoiler, it's never ever going to be perfect. You're never going to get the perfect time.
Although apart from Ian, when he left Gallagher.
Yeah, that was good. But I think the only other thing was, it was interesting. One thing I learned from David early on, in like the early years of our partnership, as it were, was I was very much a yes man. It's almost like, can you do this? Yes. What's the question? But whereas I initially, and we perhaps go back to your comment of me being a fantasist.
You're not a fantasist.
No, but I think, I made myself a busy fool early. I thought having, 100 deals to look at any one time was a great thing. It's a disaster, because you never achieve anything. So come back, and I'll never forget the words David said, you're a busy fool. It's great that you can attract this information, you can attract this level of support, as it were, but having 100 risks and never achieving any is really, really bad. So
you need one of those AI triage engines that we're building in the underwriting.
We do.
Yeah. That's what you need.
Yeah. No, so I think concentrating on 5 or 10 things you can achieve the majority of is much better than having 100 that you never achieve. So don't be a busy fool.
Don't be a busy fool. What about you? What would you tell yourself the day before day one?
Don't be such a cheeky little shit. I don't know, really.
I can't speak of the little shit part, but you've got a cheeky face, though. Yeah.
I don't know. I think I would probably tell myself, just keep doing what you're doing. I've been so fortunate with the people I worked for.
Yeah.
At Alesco as well, and then at Rokstone.
Yeah.
I think when I tell other people, when we meet work experience people like that, I tell them to be confident. And I've been pretty confident, and I think that's served me well, because not everyone, you can't be an expert in everything. I'd probably tell myself that you can't be an expert in everything, but be confident in what you know, and trust your instincts. I think instincts I think are quite important. You need to have data around a lot of decisions, but I think instinct is a human quality that you won't be able to replace with AI.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a big place for instinct, especially in like management roles and things like that, judging people, building the teams where people that you just feel like will fit your culture and things like that. But I would tell myself, be confident, trust your instincts.
So this is, of course, virtual lunch. If we were going out to have lunch, well, actually, specifically you guys going out to have lunch, where would you go and who would you like to lunch with?
I shouldn't be
industry or non-industry.
No, I know, we ask everyone, right? So
you need to have the response for this. So who are you going with, and where are you going?
I've got two very different, distinct answers, really. From an industry perspective, Warren Buffett, I just think that would just be amazing. Such a shame he's kind of retired now, but he's had a great innings so far, hasn't he? At the top. And then my others would be my grandparents. I don't really remember them. They were sort of gone before I was young enough, old enough, really. So, don't remember my grandparents. So I'd like to find out what that was about. That's
such a lovely response. I know this wasn't part of the question, but do you know where you'd go with Warren Buffett and your grandparents?
So Warren Buffett, I'd like to go for breakfast with. It doesn't have to be lunch. I'd like to go for breakfast. And
should have called this virtual breakfast then, really.
No. Just because I think, I love the fact that he still has a McDonald's every day and all this sort of stuff. He stayed very, very the same. And I think I've been like that. All of my friends refer to me as, I haven't changed since I was 16. Still wearing the same clothes. No.
I don't think you are.
No, so
I suspect.
yeah, so I think I would go to a New York diner style breakfast place because I love breakfast in New York. And then grandparents, just a country pub, fire roaring, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Wholesome food.
Yeah, love that. Ian, how about you? So who are you going to lunch with, and where are you going?
I think because we've got 2 really young kids, I would go out with my wife because we never get to go out together without the kids. So Lottie can come to lunch.
Where are you taking Lottie for lunch?
I love the Paris Grill. It's such a cliche in insurance, but I love it.
I love that's where you're taking your wife.
The best steak sandwich.
It is the best steak sandwich.
Yeah, I want to show her what insurance is really about. And I think the Paris Grill is the London market.
MS ties on
there.
there.
That is like nothing says like London market lunch like the Paris Grill to me.
Yeah.
And I'll.
I mean, just watching the guy make the steak tartare is just genius, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't stand steak tartare, but I'd just order it just to watch it to be made.
I don't have any heroes or anything that I'd take out for lunch because I just find it really awkward. So maybe Matt Savitt, because he moved to Singapore. Good friend of mine I used to work with. Him and his wife, they can come.
Yeah.
But Paris Grill.
Paris Grill.
Yeah. And it'd be I always get the platter for 4, even though there's 2 people.
Yeah.
So double steak sandwich.
Always better to make sure you go now.
Great choice.
They have great mayonnaise in there as well.
Yeah.
Which is important to me. It's not built. It's homemade there.
So I don't think it would be a proper virtual lunch interview without asking you where you would go and who would you go with.
James, I'm going with you and Ian, and we're going to the Paris Grill. Sam, make a reservation there, 1 p.m. today.
Fabulous.
Job done.
Well, job done, right?
Thanks so much
Guys,
for coming.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you for coming
being on this podcast, being your guest interviewer. The interviewers became the subject.
Loved it. Thank you.
Yeah, I've loved it too. So thank you so much.
Thanks for saving us from the jaws of amateurism.
Well, I've just added a little bit more professionalism to the amateurism, really. But anyway,
thank you so much. On that bombshell, back to the studio.
Back to the studio.
That's it for this week's episode of Virtual Lunch.
Subscribe now so you don't miss an episode.
We'll be back next week. Same time, same table. See you then.